Welcome to the Valuation Desk by Highland Global, where SBA business valuations speak bank. Thank you for being here today. As small business administration lenders, you know how critical a business valuation is. It affects not only the loan decision but also your risk exposure and compliance with SBA's standard operating procedure. But here's a key insight. Business valuation isn't about finding one perfect number. It's about arriving at a defensible estimate within a range. The SBA requires a single value for underwriting, particularly in change of ownership transactions. But I want to walk you through why valuation professionals understand business value as a range and how this impacts your work in 7A lending. Let's start with the theory. Almost every professional valuation organization, from the National Association of Certified Valuators and Analysts to the American Society of Appraisers, recognizes that value isn't an exact science. Why? Because valuations rely on future cash flows, which are not guaranteed estimates, financials are adjusted based on assumptions and normalization, and market data from comparable companies often spans a wide range. In essence, valuation is part math and part judgment. So even two competent appraisers, given the same company and data, can arrive at different but supportable values. It's not because one is wrong, it's because value exists within a range. You may wonder, but SBA needs a single number. And you're right. The SBA requires a concluded opinion of value, a single point expressed as fair market value for loans involving ownership changes. But that number is the result of a professional process called reconciliation, where the appraiser selects the most supportable result after weighing all possible outcomes. In other words, that single number is typically part of a broader range. Let's explore what causes valuation to fall into a range. First up, different methods yield different values. The income approach focuses on risk and return. The market approach relies on comparable company sales. The asset approach considers net assets. Each has its own logic and each can produce divergent results. Next, assumptions vary. Revenue growth projections, capital expenditures, owner compensation adjustments, risk factors like customer concentration or key person dependency. Finally, subjective inputs matter. The discount rate or capitalization rate can swing the value by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Normalizations can significantly alter free cash flow. Market comps vary by geography, industry, and deal structure. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine a company with $500,000 in normalized free cash flow. Appraiser A uses a 20% cap rate, which yields a value of $2.5 million. Appraiser B uses an 18% cap rate, which yields a value of $2.8 million. Appraiser C uses market comps, which yields a value of $2.3 million. All are supportable. But note the spread, $2.3 million to $2.8 million, a difference of nearly 20%. That's the range in action. Consider this. Even one appraiser can produce a range based on small changes in assumptions. For example, a small manufacturer with $600,000 in normalized free cash flow is valued using the income approach. As a base case, the appraiser assumes $50,000 in CapEx, a 20% discount rate, and a 3% long-term sustainable growth rate. This yields a value of $3.2 million. Next, the appraiser considers an optimistic scenario, using $30,000 in CapEx, an 18% discount rate, and a 4% long-term sustainable growth rate, yielding a value of $4.1 million. Finally, the appraiser considers a conservative scenario, using $70,000 in CapEx, a 22% discount rate, and a 2% long-term sustainable growth rate, yielding a value of $2.7 million. Same appraiser, same company, same method. Yet the values range from $2.7 million to $4.1 million. All defensible outcomes. That's why valuation professionals talk about ranges. Because it's not about precision, it's about supportability. So how do we get to that one number the SBA needs? That's where reconciliation comes in. The appraiser takes all the indications of value and selects the one that appears most reliable based on data quality, method suitability, and professional judgment. That final value is defensible, it sits within the range, it's backed by data, and it reflects reasoned analysis. This is what you see in the valuation report. But as lenders, remember, the real world isn't that clean. What looks like a neat number, like $2.5 million, is part of a thoughtful and complex analysis. So what's the takeaway? First, valuation is not a formula. It's a framework of professional reasoning. Second, the number you get isn't absolute. It's an estimate that could reasonably vary by 10%, 15% or more. Third, when a valuation doesn't support the purchase price, it may reflect misaligned assumptions rather than a flawed deal. Let's wrap up. Yes, SBA requires a single number, but as lending professionals, understanding the story behind the number is critical. Valuation lives in the gray areas between assumptions, methods, and perceived risks. If you recognize that a concluded value is within a well-defended range, you'll be better equipped to underwrite with greater confidence, identify weak deals sooner, and manage expectations of buyer and seller. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Valuation Desk, and for your continued commitment to supporting SBA deals effectively. When you need clarity, confidence, and credibility, experience makes all the difference. At Highland Global, every appraisal is backed by decades of expertise and thousands of completed reports. We don't just crunch numbers, we provide insight, context, and defensible conclusions that lenders can count on. Whether it's a business acquisition or equipment appraisal, our seasoned approach helps ensure your deal moves forward with precision and trust. For more information on valuation-related topics, be sure to visit our website highlandglobal.com. Lenders know experience matters most,